Tell us a little bit about like your writing process. Like how do you start a writing day?
For me, my writing process has to be very scheduled because I have kids. Before I had kids, I could just be like, I'm going to write at 2 a.m. and it's cool. When you have kids, you got to treat it very much like a job. My time is when they're in daycare and preschool, so I can write from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And if I don't put in those hours, then they don't get put in. And it's a good system for anyone trying to break into writing as well. If you're having trouble doing it, set aside that time. Just say, from this time to this time, I'm writing no matter what.
So the Vampire Academy series and Bloodlines, they sort of kind of interconnect. So I'm wondering, like, how far in advance do you like plan the series? Do you know what's going to happen at the end from the very first book, or is it kind of as it goes along?
I have to know, when I sit down to write the first page of the first book, I have to know how the last book is going to end. And I usually know how each book along the way, what its big ending is going to be. That isn't to say I have every detail planned out along the way. A lot of things do pop up. But the overall structure, the main plot arcs, I do have to know. I think it makes for a better story.
All right. And so for you, like, what was your first inspiration for writing? Like, why do you want to write?
I think I've just always been a lover of stories, and I find most writers are like that. They love stories, and you just kind of want to write your own. And from a very young age, I was like that. I would love to read books, and then I just wanted to write them.
All right. And what writers do you think would influence your writing the most?
Let's see. I really loved Lucy Maud Montgomery, who wrote Anne of Green Gables, which people, whenever people are like, oh, strong female heroines, what a new concept. It's really not. Even something like that, like you wouldn't think Anne of Green Gables, but she is strong and she's strong-willed, and I always had, like, just from the back of my head, this is how girls are, this is how they should be. And another influence was Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, who they wrote this sword and sorcery series called Dragonlance back in the 80s. And everyone who hates my cliffhangers has them to blame. Because I remember just being dumbfounded. I read the second book in their trilogy, and like a main character died and someone else was like kidnapped, and I was just like, wait, this isn't how books end. But it just drove me crazy because I needed to read the third one, and so now I do that in my books.
So do you ever put any of yourself in any of your characters?
I mean, I'm all my characters, and I'm not. I mean, there's no character that you could say, oh, that is totally Richelle Mead transported into a book. Nobody's like that. But there's glimmers of me in all of them as their creator. There can't help but be. Now, that doesn't mean to say, like, oh, that murderous villain. Like, that's my secret thing. But there are personality quirks. It's such a mix. It's things for me. It's things I see in the world. And you just synthesize it into the book.
Yeah. So you said that you got the ideas for the 3 vampire races from Romanian folklore, but what about the alchemists? Where did you come up with that?
It was partially a suggestion from my friend. I told him, I said, I need a secret society to work into this world. And he's like, oh, what about the alchemists? And strictly speaking, the alchemists of history really don't do what mine do, but it kind of gave me a springboard. And I've really changed them quite a bit, so I'm not sure how much resemblance there is between mine now. But that was kind of where it came from. I just wanted this Men in Black kind of group to be active in the vampire world.
So unfortunately, Frostbite, which was the second book in the Vampire Academy, was not made into a movie. And I know a lot of fans were disappointed because we all wanted to see Adrian. Is there any actor that you would want to play Adrian, or you imagine as Adrian?
No, I don't. I've always tried to keep my head clear of that. I rarely talk about dream casting. I find it's easier to be open-minded, because then when things are cast, you aren't upset. I mean, people get vicious on the internet. They get suicidal on the internet. They're like, I can't believe my dream actor wasn't cast, and I just want to steer away from that and just, what comes is what comes.
All right, now a very important question.
Okay.
Adrian or Dimitri?
Oh, can't pick. Nope, I'm asked that all the time, and I've never answered anyone. So
it's a hard question.
Yeah.
So, and last question is like, are you working on anything right now? Is there anything we can look forward to?
My next book is going to be Soundless, which is a standalone book. Comes out November 10th. It's high fantasy based on ancient Chinese history. It's inspired by that. And it takes place in this remote mountain village where people haven't been able to hear for generations. And there's a teenage girl, she's an artist, and so that makes her a very important person when you can't hear because they're very visual. And she wakes up one morning and she has her hearing back, and no one's had this for years. She doesn't even know how to describe what she's experiencing, and so she goes on this quest to try to figure out what's happened to her in her village. And she's accompanied by a young man she used to be involved with, so there's some issues. But it's fun. It's a cool thing, and so it's just a standalone, self-contained book that'll be out in November. And then there's more stuff coming next year I can't talk about.
Well, I'm looking forward to Soundless. That sounds great. All right, well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.